of the Arabian Horse Society of Australia. Thank you again for taking the time to be with us here tonight for the third in the series of August seminars that we're running. I wanted to, first of all, welcome our current Senior Vice Chair of the Arabian Horse Society, Mr. Doug Rutherford. Doug's filling in for Adam King, who's disposed tonight. He sends his apologies. And I also wanted to acknowledge and welcome Greg Little.
Graham, can I interrupt? Sorry. Doug is here, he's watching, but his computer's not letting him get in at the moment, so he's having a few problems.
He can watch with you.
Yeah, he can.
Thanks, Colin. Look, I also wanted to acknowledge and welcome Mr. Greg Liddell, Mr. Alan Preston and Mrs. Leonie Williamson, who are here as former chairs of the Arabian Horse Society, so welcome to them. And I also wanted to welcome members of the JOC and our state delegates that are here tonight. Look, at this point, I just wanted to acknowledge the recent passing of Lady Elizabeth Massey Green, who most of you may have seen reports on Facebook that she passed away at the age of 102 years. She was the owner of Belbarry Stud, where she bred Arabian horses and Australian ponies. She contributed much to the Arabian horse community, and I believe that an article will be written about her life and times in a forthcoming edition of the Versatile Arabian Horse magazine by Val Males, but I just thought it was appropriate that we acknowledged her passing tonight. Look, I'm pleased again with the roll-up tonight. We've got nearly 60 judges online tonight, so thank you for that. Every state in Australia is represented again, apart from the Northern Territory, so it's a really good roll-up. Welcome to those that have jumped in from interstate. I was talking to Eloise Lando today in Qatar. She may be able to jump on tonight, but she's busy with her work, but she sends her apologies. And I also wanted to acknowledge our fellow judges from New Zealand. The New Zealand Arabian Horse Society will be using these recorded seminars as part of their educational and training program. So I just wanted to say hi and acknowledge the New Zealand judges as well. The board and the JOC sincerely hope that you enjoy the seminar tonight and that any of those that we'll provide to you in the future. As usual, we've got some housekeeping. I mentioned that I've asked you to mute and Helen will keep track of that, but please have your computers on mute unless you're going to ask a question. I think most of you know how to use the chat function now on the bottom of your screen. That will come up if you want to type in a question. And also the reactions button. If you press on the reactions button, you can come up with the raised hand if you want to ask a question. I'll try and fit that in between when the speaker has a pause during their presentations. The presentation is being recorded, as you know, so I have to say to you that if you're not comfortable being on a recorded video, you need to excuse yourself from the seminar. We will be downloading a copy of this seminar in the next few days. It's on the Judges Education page on the Arabian Horse site website. The other seminars that we've conducted are up there. And I wanted to, again, take the opportunity to thank Helen and to thank Teresa for the work that they've done in getting this seminar up and running tonight and their technical assistance as well. It's much appreciated. So about tonight, we've got three extremely well-credentialed speakers who are experts in their chosen fields, and they've been engaged for you tonight. They are all judges or competitors with many years of experience at the most senior levels, and they're passionate about their chosen topics tonight. We thank them for making the time to come along and to assist us all by passing on some of their knowledge. I would encourage you to participate tonight by asking questions and seeking further information on any matters that are of interest to you. I will formally introduce our second and third speakers, that's Sharon Hungerford and Kathy Pageon, a little bit later on, once we've heard from our first speaker, Trevor Brand. So now I would like to extend a warm welcome to Trevor Brand. Trevor is the past president of the Australian Carriage Driving Society, the ACDS, and is their current coaching coordinator. Trevor has a vast knowledge to draw on, both as a competitor and as an official. And we certainly are very lucky to have Trevor here tonight with us as someone who understands fully the processes, the procedures of how to conduct and judge within a harness show ring. And also he understands the role of you, our Arabian harness judges. I specifically asked Trevor to assist us tonight, as judging harness is something that none of us do regularly. Trevor's going to run us through the basics of the harness judging, both in the Arabian ring and what to do when you're confronted with potentially other classes that you might get asked to judge at, for instance, agricultural shows. I've also provided Trevor with a copy of our Arabian Horse Society rules around harness judging to help him in framing his presentation. So as I said, I'd encourage you to ask questions. Trevor's a wealth of knowledge, and we certainly welcome him here tonight. So Trevor, as I said, thank you for making the time to come along tonight, and welcome.
Thanks, Graham. I wasn't nervous till you did that introduction. Hello, everybody. I'll start the presentation. I have a PowerPoint to share with you. I'll just go onto it now and bring it up. Can everyone see that now? Can you see that, Graham?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Yeah.
Righto. So what I'm going to do is work through this presentation. Usually when I start any talk, I usually apologise to those people I might offend. Second group I might apologise to is those people I don't offend, because you might feel in a minority. But you get this invitation. Dear, thank you for accepting our invitation to judge the Arab ring at our feature show. Goes on with the details and then says, as these classes are scheduled to be completed by 2:30, we've appointed you to the harness classes in the same ring. Please advise if you are unable to judge these classes. Yours sincerely, the Honourable Secretary, and a phone number. Straight away, you're on that phone. I don't do harness. I don't do harness. Nice young man then says he's desperate. You know, could you do it as a favour? Last year they had the Pony Club lady and she stuffed up completely. We just need someone who knows horses who might have a go at it. So you feel a bit sorry for him and you accept. Then you panic. What you've got to remember, that judging is judging. Each one of you judges has a skill set. You have experience, you have these skills. You can just about judge anything. Chooks are a bit more intimate in their judging than they are horses, but as long as you know horses, you can judge. This is what I think a judging day looks like, leading up to the judging day. You accept your appointment, you do your background study, you present early on the day, you inspect your arena because you're the one in charge of everybody's safety. You inform your stewards what you want done, you manage your arena throughout the day, you judge your classes, you award place getters, you thank your helpers, you complete your paperwork, and because everybody's busy, you piss off quick. So let's have a look what a show driving horse looks like. And this is taken from the ACDS Show Driving Handbook. I'll read each paragraph in turn. A show driving horse should display elegance, style, balance, presence, self-carriage, good hock and knee action with light ground covering strides. Now that's a description of any horse. That's what you're looking for in your leg classes. That's what you're looking for in your saddle classes. The amount of knee action may vary according to the breed, but you've all got to have good hock and then pushing forward with the front. Second paragraph, it should be straight, even and rhythmic movement and should be able to bend and flex in the direction of travel and be light over the ground. Same again, you're judging a harness horse, no different than judging a led or a ridden horse. And finally, the show driving horse should be well presented, conditioned, short-coated, glowing with elves trimmed, presented appropriately, and give the appearance of being a pleasure to handle, to watch, to drive, to ride. So it's nothing out of your ordinary skill set for judging to be able to judge a show driving horse. I think I've froze, have I?
No, you're fine.
All right. Look, I was just worried about that because I had a little trouble with the internet here. There's dozens of different classes for carriage driving, but basically they fall into two groups. those that judge the horse in harness, and those that judge the whole turnout. So if we're judging a horse in harness, it'll be based upon the breed, could be an Arabian harness, could be a Shetland in harness. The height could be 10-2 and under 12 hands, could be pony, could be horse. It could be based in categories such as novice or open or pleasure. So we have types of classes, but basically they're all about the horse itself. The other sort of classes we could be asked to do, which is probably less common to you, is a turnout. A turnout judges the horse, the vehicle, the harness, and the overall general appearance and gives points out of 100. Half those points go to the horse. So we're still within our comfort zone with that horse. 30 to the vehicle, 10 to the harness, and 10 to the overall appearance. So this is a sample from a horse class. I'm judging this class. The only thing I'm interested in is that black and white blob at the front. No, upset the Shetlands, I love them, and that pony's moving beautifully. But I'm not judging that nice, neat harness it's got, that lovely viceroy, or the lady, how she's presented and carrying the whip. I'm only judging that horse, nothing else in a horse class. This is a turnout class. Here, you judge from the tip of that horse's nose to the back of that sulky, from the bottom of his hoof to the top of that lady's lovely hat. And you award those points out of 100. It might not be a buggy, it could be a sulky, or it could be a viceroy. Again, it's everything in that. And remember, 10 points at the end is for the overall appearance. And I think if you're judging either of those turnouts, you'd have to judge very highly in that last one out of 10. Beautiful, everything's been planned, looks great. For a turnout, because you spend so much time examining the harness, examining the horse, examining the vehicle, looking at it overall, you take a lot of time when you're doing their individual inspection. So your workout is fairly simple. We want to see them walk away from the judge, trot away from the judge, do a half circle on one rein, extend across a diagonal, half circle on the other rein, trot back to you and hold. There's a minute at the most there, a minute at the most. Now, why I'm saying it's important if you're going to judge harness is to look up turnout classes. There's nothing more insulting for you to go out there and say to the harness person who's gone to a lot of trouble to get there on the day, just go out and show us what you can do. If you say that, you deserve for them to go out and be out there 20 minutes and see how that spoils your day. So plan what you're going to do. This is a really simple workout. But today we're going to concentrate on judging the horse class. This is what happens. This is a procedure for a class, and it's not different than a ridden class, really. The horses enter the ring. My personal preference is they do that at a walk. It's much safer. Asked to trot a couple of laps on one rein. The number of laps will depend on how many you got there and you've had a good look at each of them. Get your steward to change direction through the centre of the arena. Trot a couple more laps on the other rein. Come back to a walk. Then you bring them into line. Now, if you've got 3 or 4, it's okay to bring them in and just line them up in any order. But if you've got 8 or 10, you're going to get awfully confused if you do that. So if you've got a reasonable number, make a choice. Bring your first choice in first, your second choice, your third choice, and so on. After they're all lined up, you bring the first one out and you inspect that horse and you ask it to do its individual workout. Once they're all back in line, you make your decision, you award your prizes. And I always say about judging, make a quick decision. If you're going to stuff up, at least do it quick. You won't stuff up though. So we'll go through each of those stages. Entering and working on the circle. You can't judge a harness class in the ring where you judge your leg class. There just isn't enough room. And that's why often they're scheduled at the end of the day when the judging in a couple of rings is probably finished and you can join 2 rings together. You can see here, I can see three turnouts in this group. They've got plenty of room, makes it nice and safe, keeps them apart. You can see them all. And a couple of laps is a long way, really. So a couple of laps, change through the middle, and you bring them into a lineup. This is an impressive lineup, a very mixed bag of exhibits. But compared to your saddle or lead ring, what are all these random people doing standing about in there? These people are grooms, could be called strappers. The most apt name I think they have is catcher, and that probably gives part of their role. If you've got those horses in line there, and I count about 9 or 10 of them, and you're spending about 4 minutes per horse, each horse is going to be standing there for 36, 40 minutes. So it's good that they've got someone there to ensure that they remain calm and settled and improve the safety of the arena. If any of those are playing up, get your steward, go and talk to them, remove them from the ring. There's not many accidents in harness, not as many as in leg classes, not as many as there is in saddle, but when there is one, it can escalate very quickly into a very serious situation. So we're looking at safety all the time. The judge here has brought them in, allowed plenty of space between exhibit, allowed the grooms to be down and looking after them. And by the look of this, she's up to about the 4th or 5th person who she's pulled out of line. Then your job is to inspect each horse in turn. Generally, you start at the front. So you come around to the front of this horse and you can see just about everything you see with a led or a ridden horse, slightly obscured by the bridle. And if they were wearing a full collar, you can't get a good idea of the shoulder. But with a breast collar, you can still get a pretty good idea of the shoulder. You can check their ears, eyes, nose, right down the front legs. And their head. I like this photo. It's an impressive head. But you can see there that most exhibits will have winkered bridles. So unless you're standing directly in front of them, they can't see you. This horse is obviously attracted by something in front of it, by the look of its ears, but it can't see you. You can see this bridle with its winkers over its eyes. It's a nicely set bridle because the eye's in the right place, between half and 2/3 up the winker. That gives the most useful protection from seeing from behind. And close, but not too close, that they touch the horse's eyelids. That can be really cruel. And they can be adjusted easy. The winker stays have a wire in them and they can be just spat out so the winkers go out a bit more. What's unusual about this head shot is that the noseband is quite raised above the nose, which is very unusual for harness because normally, I won't say they're tight, but they're at least snug, because part of the function of that is to help keep those winkers next to the face so they don't move out away from the face. So if I was judging a turnout, I'd mark that one down for the fact that that noseband is so far raised on it. But you get a good look at it. And that's the next bit. We move on. Then you've got to inspect them from the side. Same as you do your led horse, you go one side, walk around the back, have a look at the next side. Horse is standing nice and calm. Look where the judge is standing. And this is really important. You must stand outside the wheel width of that vehicle. Because if you stand closer to that horse gets a fright and goes forward. You don't have enough time to step out of the road of that wheel going straight over the top and you getting knocked over. So think about your safety. Think about your steward's safety. Think about everybody's safety while you're in there. So here's the judge. He's having a real good look side on at this pony. When we're judging a leg class, we also check behind. But unfortunately, we don't get much of a view in harness because of the carriage there. So we're relying very much here on what we can see at the front and what we can see at the side. Now we're going to send it on a workout. Now this is basically the same as the last one, but it's got an extra loop in it. You want to see them walk away from you, trot away from you, do a half circle extension, half circle extension, half circle, come back, halt, maintain the halt for a few seconds, ask them to rein back. Rein back is a 4-step, 4-beat steps. It's a reverse of a walk. So they should go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, halt. Then they come back up to the standing point again, and then you dismiss them back into the line. Now, this one here I got from the Australian Carriage Driving Society. I used it at a Vic or Welsh show, Helen, and I asked them to do this collection around the two ends. It was the worst mistake I've ever made in my life because what I envisaged a collected trot was, and what they did was completely different. So I've never asked for a collection again. If you can imagine battery operated Christmas toys late on Boxing Day, that's how they moved. Like that battery just had the last little ounce of energy left in it. So I never get a collection out of them anymore in their show classes. Leave that for dressage. So off they go. Walk, trot, extend, trot, halt, rein back to the position, back into line.
Just before you go any further, we've just had a question that's relevant to that about
Yes.
training back in a Viceroy.
You can ask them to back into a Viceroy, but don't judge them harshly if it jackknives. You only want the horse to come back straight. If the vehicle doesn't come back straight, it doesn't matter. They can still come back 4 or 5 strides before they get into any trouble in the Viceroy. I don't ask hackneys to back up, but I ask all other classes to back up, because the hackney may well have, you know, the bearing reins on, and I just think it's a bit cruel. So I don't ask hackneys to reverse, but I ask all other horses. And if it's a Viceroy, they only got to come back a couple of strides. It'll go sideways, just ask them to go forward again.
Okay, thank you.
Standing. In harness, if a horse can't stand and if it can't walk, ask it to leave your ring. I'm sorry, in harness, if a horse can't stand, if it can't walk, it's dangerous. This horse is having a nice old rest here, and this is what we should be with a catcher at their head. They're both distracted by something off to their right, or her right, horse's left. They've got to be able to stand. They've got to be able to walk. As I said, if in that lineup we showed before, they'd be standing there 40 minutes and working for 4 minutes. So they need to be able to stand. They need to be able to walk. You can just about, you know, any class, you can judge your horse just about on the walk. Now we started the workout and they're working away from you. Sometimes you can see them working. This sulky we see in the front here, this gig, I can see the legs fairly clearly, but if it's a combined driving vehicle or it's a 4-wheel lorry or something, I won't see the horse's legs at all. But here I get an opportunity to see it. But what I can see quite clearly here is one horse on a nice bend with the correct flex and one that's on the bend with the incorrect flex. So going away is really important. Once they've gone away and turned the corner, you'll see they'll be trotting across the arena. I saw this picture the other day and I had to download it because to me it's just a picture of what it should be. Nicely presented, nicely turned out, calm, kind, and doing a good working trot. I can see this, it looks like a happy driver and a happy horse. At some stage in the workout, I bet there's a nice even beat with that horse as it's going along. Sometime in the workout, I'm going to ask him to extend out. And here we want to look that they're covering ground and that the hocks are engaged. You know, horses have form and they have function. We checked out the form when they were standing here. We want to see that they can fulfill their function. I don't want to drive this to the corner shop to get milk and have it curdled the time I get home because they're covering no ground. I want them to get there. And I want them to look impressive. I think, gee, that's an important man driving that horse. It's a good horse. That was the theory in the old days and it still is now. I'm not so concerned about the knee lift here. This horse is a cob and he hasn't got high knee lift. When you're judging a harness class, the amount of knee lift will depend on the breed. They all have some knee lift, otherwise they trip over. So commensurate with your breed, the Arab doesn't lift as high as other breeds, but it's still got to lift enough to elevate it above the ground and then have enough strength from these hocks to drive that leg forward. The leg going forward is the most important part. At some stage, and it might be right at the end there, you're going to see them working towards you. This is the one where you can see many of the faults where they dish or they do some terrible things coming back sometimes. But sometimes in your workouts, you want to see them coming directly back at you. This horse is coming back as a picture. Everything straight, everything looks pleasant. and he's moving straight forward. All right, they come back into line. You line them up. You might want to do a final walk along. Remember, they've been standing there a long time. Don't take too long. You bring out your first, second, third, fourth, whatever number you have to, and you award the prizes. Now comes an issue. I'm going to give this little black pony, this is in England, so it's got a red ribbon. I'm going to put a ribbon on it. I haven't got a rosette, I've got a ribbon. Where am I going to put that ribbon? You can put the ribbon around the neck. There's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you don't tie up a rein. If it's for a turnout, the ribbon doesn't go on the horse. It goes on the harness or the vehicle. So you can do a loop through one of the rein turrets on the saddle. If you've got rosettes, I don't put them on the horse if I'm judging the thing, because they flap. Remember, that horse can only see what's in front of it. Anything flapping behind it might upset it. So I hand the rosette to the driver, and the driver can do what they like with it. In this case, they've put it on their dash. I personally won't place a rosette on a dash because they're either patent leather or highly polished gloss paint, and I'm not going to be the one that scratches it. So I hand, and this is something you just got to keep in mind. I hand the rosette to the driver, and she can drop it in the footwell, or she can put it on the dashboard. See, as the judge standing well away from the wheel, where they're nice and safe. Now, at any stage in my inspection of a horse, I don't touch the horse. I don't touch the harness, and I don't touch the vehicle. I don't touch the driver. I don't touch the groom. I'm there to inspect it, and I'll get a good visual impression of it. If I felt there was something seriously wrong with the quality of the leather in a turnout class, I would ask permission of the driver. I would make sure the horse was aware I was close to it. I would touch them on the shoulder, and I would just check the leather on the strap that goes from the saddle to the crupper, that back strap, because usually it's leaning up against the horse, and that's where sweat will affect it the most. But in general, I don't touch the horse because he can't see me and I might frighten him. I don't touch the harness because it's not mine, and I certainly don't swing on a wheel to see if it's loose. That's all their business. I look at it, I examine it closely, but if I want to touch anything, I would ask permission before I did. So we've awarded that prize. Beautiful young, nice Shetland. And this is just, again, about being safe. Put yourself in a position, if you're examining the front of the horse, stand 3 metres back, because if it lunges forward, you've got a chance to back one side or the other, and the driver's got the opportunity to miss you if they want to. When you're presenting the award, stand well away from the vehicle and to the side of the vehicle. Congratulate the driver if you want to shake their hand, but keep yourself safe and make sure your groom's nice and safe. And make sure your steward's nice and safe. One thing I found that happens sometimes, if it's inclement weather, the steward races and gets one of those disposable plastic ponchos. So you've got a bit of wind, you've got a bit of rain, and you've got a steward that's trying to get details off the driver. It can upset the horse terribly if that's flapping about in the wind, or they're wearing a big summer hat and it suddenly takes off. So just be aware of what you're wearing, what the people around you are wearing, so you're not contributing to any way an accident could occur. Off go the Arabs around the arena to demonstrate the prizes that they've just won. Sorry I couldn't find more pictures of Arabs in harness, but I spent a couple of days and I only found some terrible ones from the US that I wouldn't put up. So these nice ones from Australia. If you're doing your research before you go judging, you can go on to the Australian Carriage Driving Society or contact a member of the Australian Carriage Driving Society. They have a show driving handbook that's quite comprehensive. You won't need to read it all, but there might be little bits in it that you might find interesting. And that's where you'll find those 2 workouts that I showed you. I think that's all I wanted to
We've just got another question here,
That's good.
saying, going back to the backing up of horses,
Yes.
what if when you're judging them, the non-hackneys have an overcheck?
Well, then you've got to make up your mind, because you've got to give exactly the same turnout to work out to every turnout. So if you decide they've got checks on, you decide, well, I'm not going to give the one with the check on a rein back, that I don't give any of them a rein back. Remember, when we're judging, there's three important things. We've got to ensure that everything is safe. And if we think that reining back a horse with a check is not safe, we don't do it. Everything's got to be fair. So what we do with one, we do with the others. And everything's by the rules. So if we stick with safe, fair, and by the rules, we won't get into a lot of trouble, except we'll probably upset people that didn't win. But that happens all the time.
Trevor, Graham here, mate. Trevor, just a couple of questions. You answered a couple of these as you were talking, but I wrote them down earlier. But just you touched on Arabian movement and length of stride. Can you just talk a little bit more about that, how you judge that? I'm getting the sense your eye is more attuned to knee action and a higher action than what you're saying with an Arabian movement. But what do you think our Australian judges should look out for if they are actually judging a mixed class, if there are mixed breeds, etc.?
Well, if we just start with the Arab, because it's no different than the mixed breeds, it's the hock you're looking at. That's the motor. That rear end is the motor of your thing. If they're not engaging the hock, whatever's happening up the front is just a false movement, whether it's lifting and knocking their teeth out or cutting the daisies as they go across. Your strength comes from those hocks. And provided those hocks are driving you forward, the front legs are getting sufficient elevation to clear the ground, that they don't need a lot of hock action, a lot of knee action.
Yeah.
You're just thinking, what is representative of the breed that you're judging? So if I'm judging an Arab, I'm not expecting them to be knocking their teeth out with their knees, but I'm still expecting them to drive with their hocks. If they're driving with their hocks, they'll have a good length on their front stride. They'll extend out, they'll lift, and they'll push forward with the bottom half of their leg from their shoulder. But if they've got no strength in the hocks, whatever they're doing at the front is just flicking. We don't want them just flicking. Okay. If I'm doing a mixed class and suddenly I come to a championships and I've got my Hackney pony up against my Australian pony for the championship, they've both been champions in their own rings and they've come in and looking for supreme. That's when you've got to realize which is the best representative of its breed, which has performed best on the day. And sometimes that can be a hard decision of the day. I look at Hackney comes in and says, he's outstanding. I look at the Australian pony and I think he's outstanding. And then I've got to go back and think they're also a horse, which was the best representative when I looked at them standing still. And the Australian pony might get it over the Hackney.
Yeah.
But look for them going somewhere. You know, whatever the stride is, they've got to be going somewhere. There's got to be a purpose in their whole movement, driven by their hocks.
Yeah. Trevor, in the early part of your discussion, you talked about basically having a horse that's well balanced and in rhythm, and you made the reference that, you know, judges know a good horse, you know. So I guess I just want to go back over that point again as well. You talked about, you know, balance, rhythm and regularity, those sorts of things that you might see in a hack, whether it's an Arabian hack or an open class hack. So again, could you just talk a little bit more about that you're looking for a horse that has self-carriage, that, you know, is not labouring, that is not being driven hard by the driver as such, much the same way when you see beautiful hack come into the ring, that it has cadence, it has presence, it carries itself.
Well, everyone can see that turnout class Viceroy I've got up there at the moment.
Yeah.
That to me is everything I was talking about.
Yeah.
The one thing you might notice about harness, the head carriage might be slightly higher than a ridden class. So this to me is ideal head carriage for a harness horse. That nose is not, that forehead nose is not in a straight line, vertical line. It's in front of the vertical line. It clears room for that shoulder. I've judged this horse a couple of times, this pony a couple of times, and to me, it's just about the perfection of a harness pony. He's got the strength from those hocks. He clears the ground and goes forward with his front. All the rhythm, there's no skipping. There's no unevenness about his gait.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm looking for. And he's going somewhere. And he grabs your eye, you know, you see him go past and you think, wow. And that wow factor is really important in harness as well as in ridden or lead classes.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions that people are typing in.
Yes.
One of them says, some people don't use whips, but it is a rule that it has to be in their hand. And just a note that apparently the age for junior drivers has just changed.
Changed for what? Which society? They all have different ages.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into the ages. Just look it up for the conditions for the show that you're going to.
Okay.
I know in the ACDS we have ages, and at certain ages they have to have a qualified, able, agile person with them, and others they've got to have a second set of reins going to that able and agile person. Can't do that in a Viceroy, but you can do it in other carriages. But the whip, when I step into a carriage, I've got my reins in my hand already, and the first thing I do is pick up the whip. It's never out of my hand. It's never in a whip holder. It's always in my hand. God made us with two whip holders, a left hand and a right hand. You can choose which one. But when you're driving, it's there. It is not a substitute for your leg, as some people say, because when you're riding, you've got a leg, and you've got that leg right on the girth. You can't get that pressure. On a Viceroy, you can probably touch their girth, but any other harness, you're not going to get anywhere near around their rib cage to touch them. It's an extension of your arm, and it can be a reassuring touch with that settles the horse and takes them forward. You don't ever hit it with the whip, but it's there. You can use it as an aid to bend the horse if you've trained it to do that. I give them a rub on their hindquarters with it when we're standing still, just to give them some reassurance and a reward. But if they were coming backwards, if that horse got a fright and started coming backwards, and that lady didn't have a whip, that Viceroy would get jackknifed and an accident. So it's just to encourage him to go forward to halt.
The other one I've got a couple here. If you have two horses before you and one moves well, but the other has more quality, what is your deciding factor? Which would you choose?
It'd have to be a combination of the both. I mean, form and function. All my judging, my breeding, it's all on form and function. They've got to have the form, which is the conformation, the type, the absence of major faults, and then they've got to have the function, the ability to perform some sort of work. We don't want our horses and ponies to be kites on the end of the lead their whole existence. They've got to have a purpose. We breed lots of geldings. What's the use of them? We need them out doing a job. So I want to see both. So if you've got one that's good and the other one that's bad, and one facts and opposite the other, well, then you've got a difficult decision to make. I don't put one over the other. It's got to be a combination. Usually the better conformed horse moves better anyway, which generally saves you.
Another one here is it correct that a non-hackney movement is fluent, but with hackneys, shouldn't there be a slight hesitation in their action? Also, is it true that the knee and hock action should be even at their lift, which you can see in this grey pony, that the near side knee and the offside hock have equal lift?
Two questions there, wasn't there? The first one was related to that the hackney horse. There will be a slight pause at the uppermost reach of their step, and that's just a characteristic of the breed. We don't want to see that in non-hackney ponies. We want to see it much more fluid than that. Hackney horses still got to have that drive from behind. If they don't, their front legs are just going up and down, and they're not covering any ground. There's you know, the purpose of being is a carriage horse is you're going somewhere, and if they're not going anywhere and just going up and down, there's no purpose to that. Now, your second one was on, what was the second part of that question?
That the knee and hock action should be even at their lift, like this grey pony with the
Yeah, I tend to think that this grey pony even has slightly higher elevation at the front than the back. More important with the back is that when it lifts and comes down, it drives back and propels that horse forward. I'm more interested in propulsion caused by the hind legs than the lift in them. Although, as the person who asked the question says, if they've got that propulsion in the back legs, they will be lifting it up a reasonable height. So once that horse lifts its front leg like that, I don't want to see it just put it straight down. I want that lower part of the limb to reach further forward and then come down.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Trevor. I might get you just to drop the screen down now, if you wouldn't mind, Trevor.
Yeah, we've got to find it now.
Up the top there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
There
it.
we go.
Okay. Look, Trevor, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. I've got to say it was very refreshing to hear you talk about form and function and the importance that you place on confirmation in your judgment decisions. So thank you for that. It's certainly, we covered a lot of issues and a lot of ground. And judging by the questions, I think you sparked a lot of interest, and thank you for your clarity in the way you answer those questions. You certainly made a technical subject really easy to understand. So thank you very much, Trevor. I think without preempting anything, that we might get you back for a second round about how to deal with intermediate horses in the future, because it was a really good discussion. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure our judges did as well. So as I said, Trevor, thank you very much. You were terrific, and I hope that you've enjoyed yourself here tonight.
Righto, thank you, Graham. Good luck, judges.
Thank
Be
you.
brave. Go and do it. I'll leave now. So I'll leave you
Okay.
to your business.
Thanks,
Thanks
Trevor.
very much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.